Now the music is here. But just a moment. Don't complicate. Before the official start, we have a welcome music to all participants.
Mare tapue, mare tapue, e mare tapu tō umuana, te papa o te pūwhenua, e reo mamae, e reo tuoro, ia oi. Te iau. Te papa o te papa, no te punaroa mai o te arofa. O wau nei hoi te ie, tō iho. O wau nei tō taere, o wau nei tō vauvau. Te varua tupuna. Mare tapue, mare tapue. Hina aro utu ore o te mata I nou, ia mahē te papa, ia awewe te taua moa, e matai te rā, e matai huri papa, e matai huri ao, e matai no te hau. Whaatura ore a te tata, mahuta e tāroa. Opani, opani. Te moana nui hokule ai toi rau, te moana I hiti au te rā, te moana nui o hiva I toa, te moana o Patewhita. Tau mai e ta aroa, tau mai e tapu I nia, e tapu I raro, e tapu I uta, e tapu I tei. Ia hotu te moana no teu I hau. Maururu.
this ocean conference was a sailing boat, it would sail really fast on the wind of knowledge coming over from the One Ocean Conference that has just concluded with 2,200 scientists from 111 countries, thereof 51% women and 34% early career ocean professionals. And they have worked for you. They have recommendations in 10 important themes. And you can work with them. You can work with the newly published Starfish Barometer, an ocean health indicator that allows you to check on the success of your actions. But then, as you take your seats, you still may wonder, why should this conference be any different? And what can you do to give more, achieve more, not go home with empty hands? It might be that sense of urgency that we all feel, that we know of with hard facts from science. No longer will we accept the loss of corals in the world, the loss of polar life. It could be the sense of opportunity. How else could you collaborate than by coming here, finding your partners and alliances, understanding that there is finance and opportunity to build the new infrastructure that we need for our future? It could be simply the deep understanding that what makes us human is our unique ability to invent, to build, have technologies work for us, collaborate. And we are getting there. We can read the language of the ocean soundscape. We can admire the knowledge of the people building the first boats 10,000 of years ago. We can decipher the ocean genome for better materials and medicine. And if all of that doesn't help, just think about what Charles Baudelaire wrote. Homme libre, toujours tu chérirais la mer. La mer est ton miroir.
The sea is a mirror.
De la Mauritanie, porté par le vent.
I come from Mauritania, brought by the wind, from the breath of millions of women and children.
Porté par l'espoir. Mon pays est à 750 km avec l'océan. 12 000 km², dont elle a fait don à l'humanité, classé patrimoine de l'humanité par les Nations Unies et l'UNESCO. Ce don de l'humanité est en danger. La surexploitation, vous le disiez hier, sur 5 poissons pêchés, un poisson est illégalement pêché. Des milliers de femmes et d'hommes qui vivent de l'océan souffrent. Et cette chorale, c'est le murmure des enfants. L'océan saigne. Il faut que vous le sachiez. L'océan saigne par ceux qui, à la quête d'une richesse, plantent au fond de cet océan beaucoup de choses. Et l'océan saigne. Dans le murmure de cette chorale, que nous sauvons la vie. sur terre, que nous soyons capables, avec un sursaut, ensemble, comme une grande famille ici présente, de nous dresser contre l'horreur, la tragédie que nous vivons en ce moment même avec des femmes et des enfants qui meurent.
Merci infiniment. On ne pourrait pas avoir...
Thank you so much. We couldn't have had greater inspiration for the start of our work.
Distinguished heads of state and government, ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I declare open the 2025 United Nations Conference to support the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 14, conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. I call to order the first plenary meeting. In accordance with Rule 17 of the Provisional Rules of Procedure, I will serve as temporary president of the conference until the election of the two presidents. I should like to extend a warm welcome to all of you, and I'm looking forward to a successful and productive conference. I now invite the conference to proceed with the election of the two presidents, one from Costa Rica and one from France. It is my understanding that there is a general agreement to elect His Excellency Rodrigo Chaves Robles, President of the Republic of Costa Rica, and His Excellency Emmanuel Macron, President of the French Republic, as Presidents of the Conference. May I take that the Conference wishes to elect by acclamation His Excellency Rodrigo Chaves Robles and His Excellency Emmanuel Macron as its presidents? It is so decided. I now invite the conference to consider item 5 of the provisional agenda entitled the election of officers other than the presidents. In accordance with Rule 6 of the Provisional Rules of Procedure, may I take that the conference wishes to elect Costa Rica and France as ex officio vice presidents. I hear no objection. It is so decided. On behalf of all participants in the conference, I congratulate His Excellency Rodrigo Chaves Robles and His Excellency Emmanuel Macron, as well as the ex officio vice presidents on their election, and invite the two presidents to take their seats at the podium to take over the proceedings of the conference. I request the protocol to escort their excellencies. Their excellencies are already here.
You're very efficient.
Merci, Monsieur le Secrétaire.
Thank you, Secretary General of the United Nations. President of the Republic of Costa Rica, dear friends, Highnesses, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, leaders of international organizations, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, ladies and gentlemen, elected officials, Mayor of Nice, President of the region, thank you for your welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, in your ranks and capacities, the name of Nice comes from victory, Nike in Greek. In this port founded on the Mediterranean coast today, it's a victory that we're celebrating today, a victory for our oceans. First, a victory that we're all here together for this third UN Conference on the Oceans that we co-organize with Costa Rica, taking over from our Portuguese friends. A victory against inertia, indifference when it comes to degradation of our environment, on the trends towards international disengagement. But a victory, a fragile victory, since it requires rapid action, and we cannot afford to move backwards. And this mobilization, in itself is a victory because we know what's at stake. And here I want to recall those quickly. In 2024, the 1.5 degree threshold compared to pre-industrial temperatures were exceeded. Ecosystems are threatened. Coral reefs are being bleached at it's never been so fast. Hurricanes, cyclones are more intense than ever, and not just in Mayotte, in Reunion, in our own territories that paid a heavy toll in 2024, and the globe is burning. Our oceans are boiling. Scientists speak of effects that we're having heat waves even in our oceans, and as we have rising sea levels, submersion threatens us. That's why this mobilization is a vital necessity today in Nice, where there are more than 120 countries, more than 50 heads of state and government, 30 heads of international organizations who've traveled here. As just been mentioned, 100,000 people taking part, with thousands of events being arranged in its context. It's an unprecedented mobilization. Now, the ocean brings us all together in a single ecosystem, which links also climate and biodiversity. GGE reaching the poles, which are leading to rising sea levels, which are now affecting over 3 billion people living in all the world's coastal areas. Plastic pollution in the middle of the Pacific and in canyons of the Mediterranean are polluting a whole food chain, and those who bear the brunt, the primary victims, are the coastal states. The SIDS, small islands. We have our friends here, presidents here, who lead those states and those collectives. There's also the African continent, president here en masse, who are seeing their coasts being eroded, while our seas are a source of economic activity, sustainable food, and don't forget our primary ally against climate change, because our oceans capture 1/4 of the carbon that we emit, much of the heat that we emit. It's a big climate regulator. Our mobilization is therefore crucial, and in the perspective in a few months of the next COP in Belém, President Lula, next to this other great source of the Amazon, which is the cradle of our civilization, and also the Mediterranean lies at the heart of our climate struggle for water, our struggle for food, the environment, climate, for biodiversity. And those struggles are inseparable, and those are the struggles we wage. That's why this conference aims to, thanks to your mobilization, achieved its first goal, which is to reiterate the need for the international community to commit in all its components for the battle of the oceans to win. We need to revitalize multilateralism behind the UN Secretary General, and consider the only way to meet that challenge is to mobilize all actors, heads of state and government that will be speaking here, but also scientists, scientists who have mobilized, and I want to thank them. There will be no struggle for our oceans unless it's first based on free, open partnership science. Climate, like biodiversity, is not a matter of opinion, it's a matter of faith, scientifically established fact. That's why our researchers must be allowed to research freely and establish what's at the heart of our action by adopting new tools, initiatives, such as the NEEF Action Plan, but which will also allow us to transform into an international organization. Mercator Oceans, we held the first draft in 2022, which will provide an online platform on the oceans, give us a virtual idea of the oceans based on the latest scientific knowledge. EPOS, an interface between science and politics, which will allow states to receive necessary technical support to establish public policy tailored to local context. The Starfish Barometer every year will provide the state of health of the ocean. The Space for Ocean Partnership will bolster international cooperation by connecting the space sector with oceanographic community and place spatial data to the service of ocean protection, and to go even further in exploration and oversight of our oceans as a key indicator. We're launching a new ocean spatial mission called Conserve, and then with the support of all actors, oceanographic studies, both at public and private level, with the determination of the EU, will be launching the biggest global ocean exploration mission starting from 2026, the Neptune mission. And rather to hurrying to Mars, before we do that, let's find out our own final border and our best friend, the ocean. That's the goal of Neptune. Mobilize science, therefore, mobilize all local stakeholders on an unprecedented level. 300 elected officials of 5 continents have created, under the behest of Christian Estrosi, the first coalition of cities and regions to combat the impacts of climate change and rising sea levels. That coalition of local actors, co-chaired with the mayor of New Orleans, with whom you have presented your work, is also a mobilization of all actors, local actors throughout the world, of all those who are affected most by the impact of change, but helping us to build on the ground the solutions that we need to avoid and to reduce, offset, adapt on the ground ill conduct and emissions. And it's a question of mobilizing the economic community. And I thank Monaco for organizing the Blue Economy Finance Forum, which helped us launch 200 initiatives, financial facilities with a plurality of actors, which will help us to mobilize the economic sector and finance. And it's also the mobilization of youth, of our NGOs, which on the occasion of this summit, this UN conference, have submitted to us their proposals. They've mobilized and they want to act on an everyday basis with us. The first response, therefore, is multilateralism, mobilization of all actors. Second element is protection of the majority of our oceans and our planet. Just imagine, just until 2 years ago, half of the planet, 2/3 of our oceans, lived without any real international rules. For more than a decade, we fought, and the international community was blocked from obtaining in the high seas, finally, regulation. That is what was signed some months ago with the treaty in England, the biodiversity beyond the BBNJ treaty, which regulates the high seas. That treaty was signed and we mobilized, and I can tell you here that the 50 ratifications already submitted right here in the last few hours, 15 countries formally committed to joining, which means that the political agreement has been achieved, which means that we can say that that treaty on the high seas will soon be implemented. So that is an achievement.
Il aura fallu 12
In 1992, we needed 12 years to do the same with the Convention on the Law of the Sea through that collective mobilization. In just 2 years, we've managed to finally apply that treaty. And all it does, it gives us regulations. It allows us to combat illegal fisheries. It will allow us to protect our oceans in 2/3 of the oceans around the world, around half the planet. The third struggle that we're waging is protecting the seabeds, the high deep sea. We've created a coalition to promote a moratorium on deep sea mining, and I can tell all of you that is a necessity.
Et pourquoi?
And why? I'm not against economic activity, on the contrary, but I think it's madness to launch economic action that's so predatory that will disrupt the seabed biodiversity, that will destroy it, that will lead to carbon being released that we know nothing of, that we can't combat. That's pure obscurantism to have exploitation before exploration. So the moratorium on deep seabed mining is an international crucial need, launching great exploration missions, research, placing science in the front line. But let us protect our ecosystems, because we don't know what might emanate otherwise, because you have key carbon reserves, you have species that no one yet knows about. That struggle is vital for all of us. And I can tell you firmly, the ocean is not for sale. Greenland is not for sale. The Arctic, no other sea is for sale. Fishing licenses for developing countries aren't just to be handed out, no more than scientific data or security of coastal populations. These are not to be sacrificed. We're talking about a common, shared good. We're talking about a work that engages us all. So let's go for it. Another struggle is that of protection of 30% of our seas and lands. That's the struggle that we've waged. We've established in the global framework at Kunming, Montreal by 2030. That goal, we set it together with Rodrigo, starting January in 2021 through the High Ambition Coalition for Peoples and Nature, which brings together more than 120 members and was established at Kunming, Montreal to date since then. Just before this conference, we were at 8% of protected seas, according to the last count. This week will help us, and I'm waiting for announcements. We expect those number of MPAs around the world to expand, but we can't just stay at 8%. The goal is 30% by 2030. France, the second EEZ in the world, will play its full part here. More than 30% of our EEZ is already protected, and we're proud of that, but we must go further. French Polynesia has just made a big announcement. More than 4 million square kilometers, new kilometers, are now protected, of which 900,000 square kilometers are highly protected. And we'll be doing more in the dialogue by bolstering protection action with some of our big neighbors in our overseas territories, because certain scientists also say that it's not enough. We're going to significantly bolster the level of protection for part of those areas through a plan for protection of the seabed, and a map will be presented at this conference. We will now categorize the most sensitive ecosystems, such as canyons, place them under high protection. Human activity will be even further regulated, some prohibited. Fisheries techniques such as deep-sea trawling and all mining activities will, in those areas which will have been mapped on a scientific basis, together with the fishing sector, these areas will help double now the level of highly protected areas within our EEZ.
Voilà, mesdames et messieurs.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, some of the thoughts I wanted to share with you. All of that. These are struggles that we continue to wage. We must continue to mobilize on the question of plastic. 8 million tons of plastic have been dumped in the sea every year. Discussions are crucial. Will there be a global declaration of mobilization that will allow us, I hope, to mobilize everyone with a view to the next meeting? And we will also try to mobilize in particular within the context of the Mediterranean. But the struggle to limit plastics, to combat plastics on land, at sea is vital. During this conference, we'll be accelerating decarbonization of maritime transport. Key initiatives have been taken to slow it, to promote new fuels. And I want to welcome the historic agreement of the IMO that was reached a few months ago, which is a genuine revolution and which will help us transform international maritime transport. Besides that, we will continue the struggle to electrify our ports, which is a key struggle because it's 10 to 20% of our emissions. And we must continue the struggle against illegal fisheries. 1 in 5 fish consumed in the world come from illicit fisheries, which is looting, piracy, which is destroying our biodiversity. And here I want to welcome the mobilization of the WTO reaching key agreements that need to be ratified now to fight subsidies to IUU fishing. And thank you to the FAO to bolster its oversight. The WTO and FAO have established a framework together that we must all support and ratify. That's the only way we can create transparency, fight illicit subsidies to that kind of fishery, and eradicate illegal fisheries throughout the world. That is crucial because, as we heard, because that fishery is taking place in the poorest countries, in the seas of states who don't have the resources to protect them. Therefore, it's double looting. They're looting our biodiversity, but they're also looting our the fisheries resources of those who haven't the money to defend themselves. So this is yet another injustice that must be addressed. So that's what I wanted to say, my friends, at the opening of this conference. I say it, I speak with passion. I apologize because the struggle for the oceans, it lies at the very heart of all the struggles that we've waged for years for our biodiversity and against global warming and all its consequences, and to improve our environment, to improve health of ourselves and of the planet. Therefore, on each of those pillars we must fight, and I'm counting on you. I began by saying that Nice was a sign of victory, the victory to be here, to be mobilized, but above all today, you will have understood the struggle. I count on each and every one of you over these 5 days to ensure that our humanity can advance, to have a plan of action for the oceans that is as ambitious as possible here in Nice, so that together with my friend, the President of Costa Rica, we can achieve the best possible results, and that on each of those priorities that we're able to move forward together and move our planet forward together. Thank you for mobilization. Thank you for your attention. It's my pleasure now to invite His Excellency, the President Chaves, to deliver a statement. Thank you.
A very good morning. I'd like to extend greetings to the President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron, my dear friend, also António Guterres, UN Secretary General, heads of state and government, Philemon Yang, President of the UN General Assembly, Bob Rae, President of ECOSOC, and Junha, who is Secretary General of our Oceans Conference. My friend, Mr. Renaud Muselier, President of this region in France, and Christian Estrosi, Mayor of Nice, ministers, delegates, representatives of the United Nations, and representatives from France. I'd like to start, well, let me start by saying that I really want to extend real greetings to the men and women who live from small-scale fishing. Those people, we are indebted to them, and we should really give them a decent life so that they can live sustainably from the ocean. I'd like to thank the United Nations Secretary General for his leadership and the vision that he has. He's placed the health of the ocean at the very heart of the international agenda. It's a real honor for Costa Rica to have been elected as co-president of this historic conference. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here because the ocean is speaking to us. Not speaking to us with words. No, it's speaking to us with bleached coral reefs, the storms that strike more and more frequently and harsher. It's speaking with the wounded mangroves and sadly with species that will never return. But the ocean is telling us something very clear. It's saying that there is no more time left for demagogic rhetoric, but rather it is now the time to act. We are talking about a single ocean that is talking to us. We need to save that ocean. It is a single ocean that brings together, that feeds us, and on whose health humanity in its entirety depends. Because the oceans, far from being a border, a frontier, the ocean is a huge bridge, a bridge that connects us to our past, and now it is confronting us with the question, are we going to have a future? For decades now, we have treated the ocean as a sort of infinite pantry or food store. But also, we've treated it as a global waste dump. Because it's been a territory with no master, no owner, and with no clearly defined rights, and with no form of proper governance. This irresponsibility, and we all are responsible for that irresponsibility that we share. We're seeing this played out, as President Macron has just said. We see that now in an absolute tidal wave of 8 million of metric tons of plastic dumped into the sea every year. 90% of our fishing species are overfished or are absolutely on the brink of overfishing. We're talking about contamination, pollution that is progressing, whereas biodiversity seems to be regressing. We have to understand that if we keep this pace going, in 25 years, we'll have more plastic in the sea than fishes or organic material. But it's not all bad news. The ocean itself, which has been a victim, can now become the solution if we have the courage which we need and the intelligence to change our ways. In Costa Rica, we are a small country. This change has already started. We've been doing this just as decades ago we took a very courageous and radical decision to abolish our army and to protect our forests. In the same way, we are now declaring peace with the ocean. And we're doing this with actions that illustrate that it is possible to make the most of the ocean economy through policies that add value, bring value to people, but without neglecting the environment. It's a sort of false dichotomy that you either protect the environment or exploit it. I think we need to be rational and reasonable. Both can be achieved. During our speech in the general debate, our country will set out its contributions and its commitments to the health of the ocean. And we're doing this now. We have a marine environment services payment system. We have the Costa Rica Blue Fund. Just by way of example, these are innovative initiatives of partnerships, financing to protect our marine ecosystems. I'd also like to mention the joint work we're carrying out in our government with the national fishing sector to ensure that the ocean continues to be a source of economic wealth, but at the same time we're protecting it. We're duty-bound to protect it for future generations. We're also at the forefront of this call for a precautionary suspension moratorium. It's the minimum that we should be asking for, to suspend this seabed mining in international zones. We have to have this pause until we have sufficient science to rationally make use of the marine environment and to prevent this tragedy that we have regarding property rights and the lack of governance. We don't want this to simply mean that in the future we're going to be paying for maybe the greed of others. 33 countries are on board with this call. And little Costa Rica, from our country, we'd invite all nations in the world to protect this shared heritage of humanity. Obviously, this struggle can't be won by just one country or 10, nor can it be won by a president or a single NGO. This struggle is everybody's struggle. And that is why this summit must be remembered as the time when the world understood that looking after the ocean is not simply an option. Rather, it is a moral, economic, and indeed, we need minimum protection. We're talking about the existential protection. We're not here to ask for anything as a country. Costa Rica has come along to make proposals. We need to work based on science, funding, innovation. We need courage. Costa Rica has come along to say to you that we have to recognize that the ocean is not just another agenda item.
Gracias. En esta inauguración de la tercera.
As we inaugurate the third summit for the ocean, we'd like to invite the peoples of the world to get on board and behind this declaration of peace with the sea. Let's leave behind us indifference. Let's build together a new contract with marine life, indeed amongst ourselves, so that nobody exploits anything on others' backs. As we prepared for this conference, Costa Rica organized, together with France and with other countries, dialogues on the ocean. We call them the Blue Talks. And I'd very much like to thank more than 25 nations for their support, the OIA, the Organization of American States, and ECLAC, who joined this effort so that the nature-based solution proposals were put forward to improve the health and the governance of the sea. It was this conviction that prompted us to ratify the High Seas Treaty for the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity on the 22nd of May. To conserve and sustainably use the marine biodiversity. This is a clear step forward as part of our commitment, our small nation's commitment to blue diplomacy, which is the priority of our foreign policy. Because the future, I mean, we need to face the facts. The future of our peoples is not just being played out on terra firme. It's being played out in the waves, the currents, in the reefs. The ocean is just one. It's the only one we've got, as is the planet. And we have this single opportunity also before us to save them. Ladies and gentlemen, that time is now. Not tomorrow. Not, well, let's just see what's going to happen in the future. No, we have to do it now, today. And we have to do it with a sense of pride that we are the citizens of a small country that today is already protecting 30% of its marine area. It's not just something that you just should do or have to do. There are some that are already doing this. Some of us are already doing this because it is, frankly, the only moral and rational thing that we can do, even economically. Many thanks for your attention.
Je remercie Son Excellence.
I thank His Excellency, Mr. Chaves Robles, and now I'd like to invite Mr. António Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, to make a statement.
Monsieur le Président de la République,
Mr. President of the French Republic, and dear Emmanuel Macron, dear President of the Republic of Costa Rica, Excellency Rodrigo Chaves Robles, Excellencies, dear friends. At the outset, I would like to thank our host countries, the governments of France and Costa Rica, for organizing this conference. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here in Nizza-la-Bella, the city on the Côte d'Azur. We are meeting here on the coast of the Mediterranean at the center of trade culture. And this sea, for thousands of years, has been a source of life, and it reminds us of our strong dependency on oceans. Oceans produce more than half of the oxygen that we breathe. It makes 3 billion people live and affects 600 million other people. And its importance continues to grow. We see that maritime transport assures more than 80% of global trade. Oceans, are our common good par excellence. However, we are looting this source. Fish stocks are disappearing, overconsumption and illegal fishing are pushing species to the brink of extinction. Each year, 20 million tons of plastics are dumped in waters, and they're stifling ecosystems. Carbon emissions lead to acidification and the warming of oceans, destroying the coral reefs and leading to the rise of sea levels. And if this trend is not reversed, it's going to lead to the destruction of delta of rivers and other catastrophes, threatening the very survival of islands. Now, oceans absorb 90% of greenhouse gas emissions. And at the same time, it's a system in crisis that destroys food chains and leading to greater levels of insecurity. And this insecurity is exacerbated by piracy, criminal activities, human trafficking, the looting of resources. This destroys lives, but breaks on development and destroys the rights of coastal communities.
Ladies and gentlemen, since the last UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon, we have seen progress. We have also seen a growing awareness of the deep interconnection between preserving biodiversity and marine ecosystems, combating climate change, and stopping pollution. The Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework set a bold pledge to conserve and manage at least 30% of marine and coastal areas by 2030. Member States also adopted the Agreement on Marine Biological Diversity of Areas Beyond National Jurisdiction, a historic breakthrough. I urge all delegations to ratify it and welcome the good news given by President Macron and the momentum this conference is generating towards its swift entry into force. I also call on all countries to agree on an ambitious and legally binding treaty on plastic pollution this year. It is also essential to successfully conclude the agreement on fisheries currently discussed at the World Trade Organization. The International Maritime Organization committed to reach net zero emissions from shipping by 2050. And last year's General Assembly meeting on sea level rise underscored that statehood and sovereignty cannot be undermined by rising seas. This proves multilateralism works, but only if we match words with action. By developing concrete national plans aligned with global targets, by harnessing science, driving innovation, and ensuring fair access to technology, by empowering fishers, indigenous peoples, and youth, and above all, by investing. SDG 14 on life below water remains one of the least funded sustainable development goals. These must change through increased public finance, greater support from development banks, and bold models to unlock private capital. I urge all countries to come forward with bold pledges. Small island developing states need support to build resilience and thrive in the blue economy. Many struggle to access healthy, affordable food, underscoring the urgent need to restore local fisheries and strengthen ocean-based food systems. We must also strengthen maritime security as a pillar of sustainable development. And we must embed ocean priorities across climate, food systems, and sustainable finance. Because without a healthy ocean, there can be no healthy planet. Finally, nations are now addressing navigating new waters on seabed and seabed mining. I support the ongoing work of the International Seabed Authority on this important issue. The deep sea cannot become the Wild West. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in an age of turmoil, but the resolve I see here gives me hope. Hope that we can turn the tide, that we can move from plunder to protection, from exclusion to equity, from short-term exploitation to long-term stewardship. We know it's possible. When we reach the global moratorium on commercial whaling, whale populations recovered. When we protect marine areas, life returns. Today we have the opportunity to restore marine abundance. What was lost in a generation can return in a generation. The ocean of our ancestors, teeming with life and diversity, can be more than a legend. It can be our legacy. And I wish you a successful conference. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Secrétaire.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General. I'd like to now invite His Excellency Philemon Yang, President of the General Assembly, to make a statement. You have the floor.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République.
Excellency, President of the French Republic, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to address the third UN Conference on Oceans. I'd like to congratulate France, Costa Rica on their commitment to ensure better management of oceans. This conference marks a new stage in our efforts with a view to protect oceans. We're meeting just a few weeks before the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the UN Charter. It is our duty to preserve oceans, and the time to act is now. Fortunately, we have a very solid foundation that we can use to move forward. The commitments taken during the 2022 Ocean Conference have led to commitments, and these commitments have been made by governments, civil society, and by the private sector. The agreement on the preservation and the sustainable use of maritime biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction, adopted in 2023, has been a significant step forward to ensure the preservation of our oceans. The movement around the UN Decade for Maritime Sciences for Sustainable Development has been a very important step, and I praise those countries that strengthened their protected maritime areas and took measures to combat plastic pollutions and invested in the restoration of coastal ecosystems. In this context, I'm very pleased that Mr. Paul Biya, President of Cameroon, accepted to organize an international conference on the sustainable management of blue economies in the Gulf of Guinea that'll be taking place in Yaoundé in July. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all of the initiatives that we take in favor of oceans are aimed at sustainable development in its three dimensions: economic, social, and environmental. And we face very important challenges, especially for developing countries and especially for small island developing states. For hundreds of years, these countries were using oceans as a source of trade, tourism, food reserves, links with ancient cultures, and vital resources for their survival. And we have to finance our ambitions, and we have to do all of that together. We cannot ignore the fact that the SDG 14 is a goal that has received little funding, and such type of actions require important financing, especially accessible financing in light of existing commitments, and this also requires to strengthen the means for implementation for developing countries. So I'm looking forward with great interest and the adoption of the political declaration of this conference that has been made thanks to the excellent cooperation between the permanent representative of Australia and Cabo Verde, and also the voluntary contributions that will be announced in the upcoming days. I also hope that ambitious results will be achieved during the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development that will take place in Seville, Spain, in the upcoming weeks. Excellencies, the future of our oceans is in our hands. And here in Nice, we have to reaffirm that international cooperation should operate effectively, and it is crucial to ensure a better future for everyone. Thank you.
Je remercie le président.
I thank the President of the General Assembly. Thank you, President. Thank you very much, Mr. Macron.
Deseo informar a la conferencia.
And I'd like to inform the conference that the President of the Economic Social Council was unable to be with us today, and I would like to invite Mr. Lee Junha, Secretary General of the conference and Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs, to make a statement.
Your Excellency, Mr. President of the French Republic, Your Excellency, Mr. President of the Republic of Costa Rica, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished heads of state and government, honorable ministers, distinguished delegates, guests, and all stakeholders. In my capacity as the Secretary General of this conference, I extended our deep appreciation to the government of France and Costa Rica for their leadership as co-hosts. I also wish to sincerely thank the permanent representatives of Australia and Cabo Verde for their exceptional stewardship in leading the intergovernmental negotiations on the political declaration. Excellencies, the ocean is the blue heart of our planet. We gathered today here with a sense of the urgency and shared responsibility for the health of our ocean. The UN Ocean Conferences in 2017 and 2022 charted the course for transformative change to our planet. Yet, unfortunately, the ocean goal remains among the least funded of all sustainable goals. Progress on SDG 14 has been unacceptably slow. This conference, however, is not about lamenting the gaps. We convened at the moment when multilateralism is re-energizing action for our ocean. From green shipping and marine biodiversity to tackling the plastic pollution and reforming fisheries, our clear mandate here is to bridge the gap between ambition and the reality. Science has charted our course, from restoring ecosystem and rebuilding fish stocks to cultivating sustainable ocean-based economies. Finance is another critical propeller. oceans received less than 1% of the world climate financing. This must change dramatically. We need innovative blended financing models that galvanize both the public and private capital and resources to protect and restore our ocean. Over the next few days, 10 plenary sessions and 10 ocean action panels were targeted to key priorities for global ocean action. One of the most powerful outcomes of this conference will be the voluntary commitments. Today, the more than 2,000 voluntary commitments registered with my department, and the number continues to grow. Let's make sure the 2,000 commitments will be 2,000 real-world solutions. Before I conclude, allow me to extend my deepest gratitude to the people of France, and especially the people of Nice, for their warm hospitality, and to my UN colleagues and the host country team for their tireless dedication. Thank you.
Doy las gracias al secretario.
I'd like to thank the Secretary General of the conference. And now I'd like to invite the President of the Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur region, Deputy President of the regions of France, Mr. Renaud Muselier, to make a statement.
Bonjour.
Good morning and welcome to Nice, a capital of oceans and the center of the world for this historic moment. Welcome to our region, Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur, and it was a great pleasure that we're hosting you here. And I'd like to thank the President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron, and the President of Costa Rica, Mr. Chaves, and the UN Secretary General. They gave us this trust to organize this conference together with the Mayor of Nice. And it's an honor for us to host you here because we have a partnership with the Republic of Costa Rica. I speak as the president of this large maritime region with more than 1,000 coastal line, and also on behalf of all of the regions on the Mediterranean. This sea plays a special role in the history of mankind. It has a 1,000-year-old history at the heart of different civilizations and three monoistic regions: Greeks, Romans, Byzantine, the Ottoman Empire, Italy, the Catalan Rebellion, the French freedom, and Egypt. This sea is at the crossroads of the future for oral youth, and it's an example for all the other seas in the world. Why? Because the Mediterranean is now at the heart of climate change. We see accelerated heating, and it's happening 20% faster than the global average. It hosts 18% of world's maritime biodiversity. Everything is happening faster here, and the sea, almost a closed sea, becomes a barometer for the state of oceans. The present state of the Mediterranean is the future of the world. And some countries are starting to exploit the mineral riches of the seabed, and this is an error. All of us are responsible: scientists, NGOs, politicians. We have to protect this common good. To protect the Mediterranean is not a luxury. It's not an option. It's a duty. It's a combat, a commitment to the future generations of the entire world. And words are necessary, but action is strong. And local communities are especially important to protect these resources. They work with determination, and their role should be strengthened. They represent men and women who love their land, they live there, and believe in their destiny. Here in this region of the South, we continue We do that, and we continue to do it. For the last 8 years, we've been organizing meetings to find local solutions. Starting in 2017, we have been introducing plans, including the adoption of the first green budget for Europe. And we're working towards banning plastics, and if we are working towards the create SECAM area in the Mediterranean since 2022, and we'll be here in 2030, thanks to our special plan to ensure the electrification of maritime transport in our ports. The Mediterranean will not wait. It will not wait any longer, and our oceans will not wait any longer. It is necessary negotiations during the summit lead to a global comprehensive response. It's crucial to work together with conviction, determination, and courage. To save the Mediterranean, it means that we'll be saving our oceans. But let us not forget who we're talking about men and women who are living thanks to the sea. So let's find solutions for them that are specific and strong. And I believe that this represents the willingness of the entire humanity for the service of humanity. Welcome to Nice, welcome to our region. Long live our sea and long live our oceans. Thank you.
Al presidente Conserve.
I thank the President of the Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur region, Deputy President of Region France, and now I have the pleasure to invite the Mayor of Nice, Mr. Christian Estrosi, to make a statement.
Monsieur le Président de la République.
President of the French Republic, dear Emmanuel Macron, President of the Republic of Costa Rica, dear Rodrigo Chaves Robles, UN Secretary General, dear António Guterres, President of the UN General Assembly, Philemon Yang, dear President of the Region Côte, Renaud Muselier, my friend, Highness, Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, what an honor it is for Nice, as you, the President of the Republic, recalled. As it was called once, Nike, victory in Greek, Nicea for the Gallo-Romans, Nizza to the Savoie and Piedmont-Sardinia regime, Nice since 1860 for France. And Mr. Secretary General, Nice à la bella onissois. So for a few days, the world of the sea, the peoples of the ocean, those who refuse to stand idle, have come here in Nice, and I want to thank you very warmly, the President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron, and the President of Costa Rica, Rodrigo Chaves Robles, for having proposed Nice to the United Nations to host this summit. Obviously, I would like to thank the Secretary General, António Guterres, and the President of the General Assembly, Philemon Yang, for the trust vested in us. Your presence, all of you here in Nice, says a great deal. It gives great hope for millions of people living in coastal areas. Presidents, Majesties, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, I wish to personally welcome you all. But before you begin your work, I wanted to say to you what we, the people of the sea, we who live along the coasts of the whole world, what we expect of this summit. We expect that the Nice Accords should become for the ocean what the Paris Accords became for climate 10 years ago, and what we have successively announced by what was announced by the President of the Republic, President of Costa Rica, is naturally gives us great encouragement today. a turning point. After 3 days, the scientists who came to the same chamber and raised everyone's awareness. There was also the Economic Blue Forum that was held in Monaco, hosted by Prince Albert. And it was thanks to all those initiatives thanks to the President of the French Republic, who proposed the UN to form this coalition of all mayors, presidents of territories, governors of all coastal areas, of all islands, from all continents, all the seas and oceans, with the support of Peter Thompson and Kabal Amakran. It's great to see how strong that coalition is today. Is so welcome. And just a few days ago, with 450 mayors and heads of authority, and the mayor of New Orleans, it was my honor to launch a new UN coalition, Ocean Rise and Coastal Resilience. That coalition was called, and nothing was ignored. Coastal erosion, disappearance of certain islands and states, salination of land, storms, hurricanes, cyclones. And I've come to bring you a message on behalf of those leaders whose territories are currently disappearing underwater, on behalf of close to 1 billion men and women who expect us to succeed. I've come to say this: we, the actors of the last few kilometers, presidents of these areas, we are ready. We are ready to fight for our coasts, for our populations, for islands, for our future, but also for that magnificent biodiversity that it is our duty to protect. We are doing a great deal. We can do a great deal more. We've been quick to act, to react. From our metropoles in the Alps to the depths of the Mediterranean, we are investing massively with Haliotis 2, our biggest industrial French project, to treat wastewater, supported by the European Investment Bank and the Bank of the Territories. Close to 700 million euros have been invested, with a view to updating that treatment to mean there is zero plastic waste in the Mediterranean, 70 hectares of restoration, and I could also mention zero emissions with the decarbonization of our transport, obviously, but there's also been the creation of our marine protected area, and all of these actions we owe it to the support of the European Union, to the state and government of France, to the Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur region. We thank you to Renaud Muselier, the president there, for all of this, for each and every one of us in our respective coastal areas all around the world, who are there to safeguard our citizens, who are there to be watchful no matter where they are, no matter their history, culture, or tradition. It's for them and for future generations that we must act. With your support and with your determination, it will be so important in these days to come. We need you, but I also think that you need us. Trust us like we trust you. We, the peoples of the ocean, we believe in you, because if you've come this far, then that is because you are determined to change things. And thank you and welcome to Nice.
Le doy las gracias a la...
I want to thank the Mayor of Nice. We've heard the last speaker for the opening segment of the conference. Nevertheless, I would like to invite the President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva from Brazil, who is the President of COP30. I'd like to welcome you, President.
Hoje eu aprendi uma coisa nova. Eu sempre achei que tinha nome de NIF porque o descobridor da cidade amava a sua mulher.
Good morning.
The second thing I learned, I would like to thank Mr. Emmanuel Macron for the state visit I made to France and for his invitation to participate in this conference. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for his affection, for his kindness towards me and my wife and my whole delegation. I'd also like to salute the President of Costa Rica, Rodrigo Chaves Robles, and also to welcome António Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. And I'd also like to greet Philemon Yang, President of the General Assembly, dear friends, heads of state and government, and members of the Bureau of the water cycle and the cycle of life are one, said the French oceanographist Jacques Cousteau. It is impossible to speak of sustainable development without including the ocean. Without protecting her, it is impossible to fight climate change. 3 billion people depend directly on marine resources for their survival. The ocean is the planet's biggest climate regulator due to the whole chain of life that it hosts.
Há mais de 4 décadas da
The adoption of UNCLOS enshrined for the first time the concept of common heritage of mankind. The creation of this international regime governing maritime space was one of the biggest success stories in the history of diplomacy.
It's important that we bank on multilateralism. It's meant that we've been able to overcome differences that seemed insurmountable. However, now we're seeing hanging over the ocean the threat of unilateralism. We cannot allow happening to the sea what happened to international trade. International trade's rules have been eroded to the point where the WTO is virtually inoperative. We need to ensure that the oceans don't become the stage of geopolitical arguments, and this is a pressing task if we are to build peace. Channels, gulfs, and straits should bring us together rather than be a reason for discord. Halting this predatory rush for minerals requires a clear action from the International Seabed Authority, and we need to support them. And this is something that is headed now by the Brazilian scientist Leticia de Carvalho, and I extend greetings to her. Dubious interests are preventing the creation of the South Atlantic Whale Sanctuary. Brazil is committed to ratifying the High Seas Treaty this year to ensure transparent management and shared management of biodiversity beyond national borders. Ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to be an ocean nation. The Brazilian maritime space occupies 5.7 million square kilometers. This is an area that's comparable to the Amazon. That is precisely why we call it the Blue Amazon. The analogy between forests and the sea is not limited to natural wealth that both have, nor to the cultural heritage of peoples that depend on and look after these biomes. Both Amazons are suffering the impact of climate change. Tropical forests are being pushed to a point of non-return. The ocean is feverish. In virtually 1 year, the average temperature of the sea has been risen by as much as virtually the same rise over the last 4 decades. Science has shown that the cause of this disease is global warming and the use of fossil fuels. Over the last 10 years, the world has produced more plastic than in the entire former century. Waste represents 80% of marine pollution. Saving this biome requires renewed commitment in implementing SDG 14 in the Paris Agreement. Brazil will be stressing preservation and sustainable use of the ocean in COP30, just as we did with our national determined contributions. We'll be addressing the topic indeed in other forums, such as the Brazil-Caribbean Summit, which will be held in a few days' time, as well as the 9th meeting of the South Atlantic Zone for Peace and Cooperation, and we will be hosting that in 2026. Here in Nice, we'll be submitting 7 voluntary commitments related to the protection of marine areas, as well as maritime spatial planning, sustainable fishing, science and education. Quite apart from stopping deforestation by 2030, we will be increasing from 26% to 30% the coverage of our marine protected areas, thereby complying with one of the goals of the Global Framework for Biodiversity. We'll also be implementing dedicated programs to preserve our mangroves, as well as coral reefs. And we are drawing up a national strategy to combat plastic pollution in the ocean. Our efforts are unprecedented in the marine space planning area. It'll mean that we'll be able to have a balanced use of the ocean, taking into account our environmental impact and the ecosystem services. We're promoting sustainable fishing. We're combating illegal action which threatens this important activity for the food security of our people. We're going to be strengthening scientific data collection through an integrated monitoring system. We'll continue to invest in research through the Antarctic Station Commandant Farage. With support from UNESCO, Brazil was the first country to include ocean culture in our school curriculum, and we will continue to train teachers to educate in the area of blue curriculum. In 2025, we will in fact have the highest number of blue schools in the world, bringing together 515 school establishments, 160,000 students and 2,600 teachers. 10 years ago, Paris was a framework for climate governance. Now, Nice is on the path as well, on the path towards Belém. Along with the UN, Brazil is going to launch what we call a global ethical stocktake to mobilize teachers, artists, leaders, faith leaders, youth, women, indigenous peoples, as well as traditional communities and people of African descent, all coming together in COP30. We need a huge wave to build a more fair and sustainable future. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, turning to our Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, just like what he said, it's so important that in COP30 we take 3 important decisions. First of all, the decision to convince the heads of state of this world that, climate change is not something that's just been dreamed up. It's not a joke. Climate change is a vital existential need for our environment, and we're going to have to take a decision on that, irrespective of whether they believe or not. If they believe, then there's no reason not to do this. We have to save planet Earth. This is for humanity's sake. We also have to say to heads of state that we need to look at education, in primary education, climate issues, because after 18 years old, You know, these people need to know that they can't do this or that, and they need to get that from early childhood. It's much easier to do it that way. We need to start at that level. I think we can only do this when we change our school curriculum so that climate issues are at the heart, from creche right up to university level. Let's put it in our curriculum there. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite you all, November, to come to Brazil. Come along, get to know the Amazon. There are so many different types. You need to go and visit the Amazon. Come to COP30. Alongside, you know, we want to preserve each and every tree. Linked to that tree is a child, a fisherman, an indigenous person, or an activist, a human being, in short. And that's why richer countries have to pay their debt in that regard. Greetings to you and see you in Brazil.
Le agradezco al señor.
To thank President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva for those words. We'll now move to item 3, which is adoption of the rules of procedure. I invite the conference to consider item 3 of the provisional agenda entitled Adoption of the Rules of Procedure. The conference has before it a note by the Secretariat issued as document A Conf 230 2025-2 containing the provisional rules of procedure of the conference. May I take it that the conference agrees to adopt the rules of procedure as contained in the document aforementioned? And is that the case? Can I adopt? Are there any objections? Absent objections, I hear no objection. It's so decided. The conference has thus concluded its consideration of item 3 of the provisional agenda. Moving to item 4. I invite the conference to consider item 4 of the provisional agenda entitled Adoption of the Agenda of the Conference. I'd like to draw the attention of delegations to document A Conf 230 2025/1, which contains the provisional agenda for the conference. I give the floor now to the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation.
No? Señor Secretario General.
Secretary General of the Conference.
Thank you for giving me the floor. The Russian delegation generally agrees with the ideas endorsed in the opening words. We also believe that the actions for the sake of the ocean, the actions to support the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 14 should be collective, responsible, and inclusive. Unfortunately, we have to admit that it is not the way for everyone. The Russian Federation played an active role in preparatory process to the Ocean Conference, including in negotiating its outcome document, that declaration. Nevertheless, the host country is yet to issue a visa to one of the main Russian experts who took part in it. The person who is a part of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Ecology of the Russian Federation. We are deeply concerned about this fact, and we do hope that the host country, co-organizing a major United Nations conference, will fulfill its obligations and will issue the visa in question in the nearest time today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation. Therefore, can I take it that the conference adopts the programme contained in the aforementioned document? If there are any objections, please let us know. I hear no objection. It is so decided. The conference has thus concluded its consideration of agenda item 4. Turning to item 5, election of officers other than the President. I invite the conference to resume its consideration of agenda item 5, entitled Election of Officers Other than the President. Under Rule 6 of the Rules of Procedure, the conference shall elect from among representatives of participating states, and on the basis of ensuring the representative character of the General Committee, 13 vice presidents, one of whom shall be designated as Rapporteur General. With regard to the election of the vice presidents, I have been informed that there is general agreement among delegations to elect the following countries from among the African states: Kenya, Mauritius, and Morocco. From among the Asia-Pacific states, the Federated States of Micronesia, Philippines, and Singapore. From among the Eastern European states, Armenia, Croatia, and Poland. From among the Latin American and Caribbean states, Brazil and Dominican Republic. And from among the Western European and other states, Germany and Monaco. May I take it that the conference wishes to elect by acclamation Armenia, Brazil, Croatia, the Dominican Republic, Germany, Kenya, Mauritius, the Federated States of Micronesia, Monaco, Morocco, the Philippines, Poland, and Singapore as vice presidents. By acclamation. Thank you very much, and I'd like to hear some applause.
Al no haber objeciones, así queda.
I hear no objection, and it is so decided. On behalf of the conference, I congratulate the vice presidents on their election.
Invito ahora a la conferencia.
I'd now like to invite the conference to proceed with the designation of the Rapporteur General of the conference. I've been informed that there is general agreement to designate His Excellency Omar Hilal, Permanent Representative of Morocco to the United Nations in New York, as Rapporteur General of the conference. May I take it that the conference wishes to proceed accordingly? So, applause. I hear no objection, and therefore it is so decided. On behalf of the conference, I'd like to congratulate His Excellency Omar Hilal of Morocco on his designation as Rapporteur General of the conference, and I'd like to invite him to take his seat at the podium.
Señor Hilale, se va a unir al...
Mr. Hilal, would you like to come to the podium?
La conferencia ha concluido así.
Thus, the conference has concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 5.
Invito a la conferencia.
I would now like to invite the conference to consider Agenda Item 6, entitled Organisation of Work, including the establishment of subsidiary organs and other organizational matters. The conference has before it a note by the Secretariat entitled Organizational and Procedural Matters, and it's contained in document A/conf.230/2025/3. May I take it that the conference wishes to approve the organization of work as set out in the document A/conf.230/2025/3? I hear no objections, so it is so decided. Thank you. In connection with the decision that has just been taken, I'd like to inform the conference that the presidents of the conference have received a request from the delegation of the European Union that both the President of the European Council and the President of the European Commission would like to make a statement with the total time of the two statements not exceeding 5 minutes allocated to each delegation. With the agreement of the conference, we shall proceed accordingly.
Invito, por favor, al presidente.
I would like to invite the President of the European Council and the President of the European Commission now to make their statements.
Me informan que aparentemente.
Well, I've been told that the speaking order for this document is slightly different, so they will not take the floor just now. So we can now move on to appointment of the co-chairs of the Ocean Action Panels. This has to do with the 10 Ocean Action Panels. Oh, apparently they are coming. Excellent.
Bienvenidos.
Welcome.
Bien, Monsieur le Président de la République française,
President of the French Republic, President of the Costa Rican Republic, dear Secretary General of the UN, António Guterres, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, oceans are the very heart of our planet. They are key to combat climate change, bringing together people from a range of continents who share a common heritage of humanity. And that is why we're here today, because we know what the diagnosis is. We've heard the clear messages from our planet, and we know that the treble planetary crisis: climate change, loss of biodiversity, amongst others, is increasingly acute. It's not a question for diagnosis now, it's the time for action. And the EU is engaged in action. In March, the European Council has a common shared action. This is aimed at promoting health and governance of the oceans. First of all, we need to act at European level through the European Pact for Oceans. Ursula von der Leyen actually will be submitting this afternoon. It means that there will be a cross-cutting approach based on science, environmental protection, the blue economy based on research and security. We also need to act internationally, particularly the fact that the EU has already ratified the High Seas Treaty, and its member states are committed to contributing to it so that it can come into force by the end of the year. And finally, we need to act multilaterally, supporting the United Nations, because it is only at a multilateral level that we can address these global issues affecting humanity. We're here in Nice as well with a view to the SDGs, achieving the Pact for the Future, as well as the Reform Initiative, the UN 80 initiative. We have to progress the main issues affecting humanity for the ocean and for the planet. Saving humanity, in other words. Many thanks.
Secretary General António Guterres, I salute our distinguished hosts, distinguished guests. Thank you very much for bringing us together here at this stunning coastline, an ocean we've all seen. It inspired painters like Matisse and Chagall and many more, but we all know that the ocean is so much more than just inspiration. It is life. It feeds us, it cools us, it connects us to the world. And together we have taken many important steps to protect our ocean. And I think today we can celebrate the first results, but at the same time, we must step up our efforts. Because we all know that, and we've heard it just, the ocean is still in crisis. And without action, we risk our future. So I want to be very concrete. Let me give you 3 examples where Europe takes action. First of all, when France hosted the One Ocean Conference in Brittany 3 years ago, it built global momentum for the High Seas Treaty. My predecessor spoke about it. And we all know the treaty is a crucial instrument to protect our ocean beyond borders. And indeed, we made it. The treaty was agreed and adopted. And today, we're inches away from the 60 signatures for ratification. So, to bring the High Seas Treaty to life, Europe will contribute 40 million euros to the Global Ocean Programme. So I ask you all today, please speed up ratification, because our ocean needs us to play its part. The second announcement from Europe today is the incredible digital twin of the ocean. I announced it 3 years ago in Brest. Today, we proudly present the first demonstration version. It's an amazing tool that helps us better understand the ocean, from pollution to navigation, but also from risk for our coasts to biodiversity, you name it. We won't stop here. We heard the call from France and others to invest heavily in ocean research. So building on the digital twin, we launch a new ocean observation initiative. It will give vital data to everyone who relies on the ocean, and it will help to make Europe a global leader in ocean science, technology, and security. I call on all countries here today to join Europe in this mission. And finally, We will this afternoon present the Ocean Pact of the European Union. It's the first ever pact for the ocean in the European Union. If we all play our part, we can save our ocean. Jacques Cousteau once said, "The sea, the great unifier, is man's only hope." Now, as never before, we are all in the same boat, but by working together, we can make it happen to have a good future of the ocean. It's in our hands. Thank you so much.
Pour ce qui est de la nomination des coprésidents des tables rondes Action.
Now moving on to the appointment of the co-chairs of the Ocean Action panels. In relation to those panels, as per General Assembly Resolution 78128, the Presidents have appointed the following co-chairs. Her Excellency Marina Silva, who is Minister of the Environment and Climate Change of Brazil, and His Excellency Stavros Papastavrou, Minister of the Environment and Energy of Greece. They are co-chairs of the Ocean Action Panel 1 on conserving, sustainably managing and restoring marine and coastal ecosystems, including deep-sea ecosystems. His Excellency Javier Martinez Acha Vázquez, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Panama, and His Excellency José Manuel Fernandes, Minister of Agriculture and the Sea of Portugal, are co-chairs of Ocean Action Panel 2 on increasing ocean-related scientific cooperation, knowledge, capacity building, marine technology, and education to strengthen the science policy interface for ocean health. His Excellency Johan Paul Johansson, Minister for the Environment, Energy and Climate of Iceland, and Her Excellency Camina Johnson-Smith, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Jamaica. They are co-chairs of Ocean Action Panel 3 on mobilizing finance for ocean actions in support of Sustainable Development Goal 14. His Excellency Carsten Schneider, Federal Minister for the Environment, Climate Action, Nature Conservation and Nuclear Safety of Germany, and Her Excellency Masouda Mohamed Lagdaf, Minister of Environment of Mauritania, as co-chairs of Ocean Action Panel 4 on preventing and significantly reducing marine pollution of all kinds, in particular from land-based activities. Her Excellency Maria Vukovic, Minister for the Environmental Protection and Green Transition of Croatia, and His Excellency Bui Thanh Son, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Vietnam, as co-chairs of Ocean Action Panel 5 on fostering sustainable fisheries management, including supporting small-scale fishers. Her Excellency Annette Gibbons, Deputy Minister at Fisheries and Oceans of Canada, and His Excellency Surangel Whips, President of the Republic of Palau, as co-chairs of Ocean Action Panel 6 on advancing sustainable ocean-based economies, sustainable maritime transport and coastal community resilience, leaving no one behind. His Excellency Jean-Luc Cruc, Minister of Mobility, Climate and Ecological Transition in charge of Sustainable Development of Belgium, and His Excellency Arif Havas Ogroseno, Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, as co-chairs of Ocean Action Panel 7 on leveraging ocean, climate and biodiversity interlinkages. His Excellency Claudio Barbaro, Under-Secretary of State for the Environment of Italy, and Her Excellency Leila Benalla, Minister of Energy Transition and Sustainable Development of Morocco, as co-chairs of Ocean Action Panel 8 on promoting and supporting all forms of cooperation, especially at the regional and sub-regional levels. His Excellency King Sumbun, Deputy Minister for Marine Policy, Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries of the Republic of Korea, and His Excellency Philip Isdom Pango, Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, as co-chairs of Ocean Action Panel 9, promoting the role of sustainable food from the ocean for poverty eradication and food security. Mr. Heraldo Muñoz, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Chile's Special Envoy for the Ocean, and Madam Penelope Ridings of New Zealand, member of the International Law Commission, as co-chairs of Ocean Action Panel 10 on enhancing the conservation and sustainable use of oceans and their resources by implementing international law as reflected in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. I would really like to thank the co-chairs. Thank you so much for assuming this important role. The conference has thus concluded this stage of its consideration of Agenda Item 6.
J'invite maintenant la conférence à...
I'd now like to invite the conference to consider sub-item A of Agenda Item 7, namely, appointment of the members of the Credentials Committee. Rule 4 of the Rules of Procedure provides that a Credentials Committee of 9 members shall be appointed at the beginning of the conference, and that its composition shall be based on that of the Credentials Committee of the General Assembly at its 79th session. The following states are members of the Credentials Committee of the 79th session of the General Assembly, namely Antigua and Barbuda, Cabo Verde, China, Dominica, US, Liberia, Monaco, the Russian Federation, and the Lao People's Democratic Republic, as well as Monaco. I've been informed by the Secretariat that the US is not going to be able to participate in the conference and therefore would not be available to serve on the Credentials Committee. Therefore, in accordance with past practice of the United Nations conferences, Canada, from the Western European and other states, has been nominated to replace the United States of America as a member of the Credentials Committee. So, may I take it that the conference wishes to appoint Antigua and Barbuda, Cabo Verde, Canada, China, Dominica, the Lao People's Democratic Republic, Liberia, Monaco, and the Russian Federation as members of the Credentials Committee of the conference? I hear no objection. It is therefore so decided.
Il est rappelé aux délégations que, conformément au règlement intérieur de la conférence,
delegates are reminded that in accordance with the rules of procedure of the conference, credentials issued by the head of state or government or by the Minister for Foreign Affairs, or in the case of the European Union, by the President of the European Commission, should be submitted to the Office of Legal Affairs, which is located in Building C of the conference venue, if they have not already been submitted. The conference has concluded its consideration of sub-item A of Agenda Item 7. 8. General debate. Distinguished heads of state and government, ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the conference shall now commence its general debate under Agenda Item 7. In accordance with the organisation of the work of the conference, contained in document A, Conf 230, 2025, 3 statements and general debate should not exceed 5 minutes. Speakers with longer statements are encouraged to read a shorter version of their text. So a shorter version of their text, and to submit the full length of their statements to e-statements-oceans@un.org so that they can be posted on the site of the Journal of the United Nations. To assist speakers in managing their time, a timer shall be projected onto the screen.
Son Excellence, Monsieur Évariste Ndayishimiye.
I'd now like to invite His Excellency Évariste Ndayishimiye, President of the Republic of Burundi, to address the conference on behalf of African states.